When did you purchase a hookah bar? With that shirt, I was just curious.
Yeah. But I wore this at the wedding I was at last weekend. And then...
I never took it off.
And I never took it off, baby. I don't know if you can tell, but I shaved everything other than my mustache, too.
No, I didn't know that, too. That's why the whole thing was just like, what? You look like you look like a small business owner right now.
A small business owner for a very specific neighborhood in Queens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a neighborhood nobody's heard of before.
No. What are you talking about? Me and the boys in East Greenway. What? That classic.
Where is that?
You know that Billy,
idiot?
that Billy Joel song where he goes, "Me and the boys down in Greentown." You're like, I guess I do know that one. It sounds like one I've heard before. John Mulaney. Well, a fun intro to this is there was recently, as of the time that we're recording this, there was Mulaney discourse on Twitter, meaning the television show.
Yes, we
Which
are.
is,
we got our
that.
finger on the pulse of
the pulse.
society.
6 months earlier. So the tweet that I didn't see, I only saw a couple tweets that you sent me and someone else sent me, but it was the one that I thought was interesting was the one you sent me that was someone going, it should have gotten more than one season or something. Like, you can put that one up and it's like all first season sitcoms are bad, which fair enough, but also it did have a pretty good shot, they aired the whole show. This is 10 years ago. This isn't Netflix cutting it off after having, it had a decent enough shot. And two, it was really bad. Guys, I'm sorry to break it to you.
Yes.
All of the shows that had really bad first seasons that moved forward, there were still leagues ahead of what we're watching now. You and I, very confident, can say this now. You and I are the world's foremost experts about Mulaney, the sitcom.
Yes.
I have no qualms in saying that. It's so much worse than you remember.
Yeah, it's like rose-colored glasses looking back. And a lot of the tweets I've seen are based around a clip from this episode that we watched.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that one too, which is funny because it does kind of. We can talk more about it, in specifics. But what I was thinking a lot about in this episode, because also what's funny is this episode, as we talked about last time or maybe 2 times ago, was that the show was aired completely out of order. So this is actually episode 5. Even though it's the third to last episode of the show. Right. So it was kind of early
because reviewers mentioned this. That's where we discovered the cat thing.
Yeah.
That Jane was trying to seduce her cat. And we were like, okay, I don't know what episode that is because we've already watched 8 when we discovered that in the reviews. But it turns out they aired it out of order. Which is weird, but not that weird, I guess, because it wasn't they weren't filming it in front of the audience and putting it out the next week kind of thing,
It also, it's not really a serialized show. You don't need to really know anything about anything to understand what each episode.
But Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage, they filmed that and put it out in order. It's being filmed and then the next week that episode airs. They're not filming an episode and then the episode that they filmed this week goes, they're not mixing up the order, which just tells me that this show kind of was filmed and kind of floated around a bit in a weird way.
Yes.
It feels
the reason you do it out of order is because you try to lead with the stuff you think people are going to watch. The stuff that you think will be more of a rating set first, front load it with the stuff you think is great. And then when you realize that doesn't work, you're like, well, fuck, this is what we have left. So just fucking go, And looking at the broadcast order, I'm like, because I don't know what the... I think we both probably like episode 5 and episode 8 the best, which is the Pete Holmes Priest one and the Christmas one. But you can't have the Christmas episode be the second episode because it's a very seasonal thing. The Pete Holmes one is also one that you can't really... I mean, that was episode 5, so that is kind of in the beginning. But in general, it's if you told me to look at it and be air this show, organize this show in terms of what you think people will watch the most, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know what it's there's not one that jumps out as eye-catching or something, they did what they could, but none of this makes sense.
I would say this episode is not only my favorite, what I think is the best of everything we've seen so far. This would have been a better, put this out first. This is more in line of whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah. This should have been episode 5. I don't know why you pushed it by a month and a half.
Let's go. Put it out earlier, because you might
Yeah.
get some decent reviews on the books. What are you afraid of? This
Yeah.
is the everything that we've seen over 10 episodes culminated in this actually being able to do everything that they're trying to do.
Right. Well,
there's missteps, of course, but
there's definitely missteps. But what I was thinking about with this show was that it was something we talked about, how he wanted to make a sitcom, like how he describes his late night show is like the late night show you see a character watching a movie, where it's like almost like a show but not. And I think that was exactly what he was trying to make this sitcom. Like it's almost like a sitcom, but like not. And like there was a review I remember we read that was defending Mulaney that was like, look at it seems really stock, but look at how dark the jokes are. Isn't that crazy? And we were both like, what does that even mean? Like, there's dark jokes in Seinfeld, there's dark jokes in everything. But in this episode, there was jokes where I was like, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. This is like so far beyond the pale. Like the clip that broadcast Twitter about like, it's a suicide joke about like, saying that Jane was going to shoot herself. It's like that one in that exact capacity with John's little smile and a multicam setup. I'm like, I get it. This explains the show to me, you know? But there are still issues I have with it. Like in the narrative construction, that was too rote for me to really... That one didn't seem like it was subversive. It just seemed like what it was. But this was explaining to me tonally what this could have been, you know?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what this episode feels like. Is like... it's kind of, I don't know, I hate the word Rosetta Stone, but it is like everything you can translate into what they try to do on other episodes through this episode. It's like I don't know, it's like a power strip where everything's kind of plugged in and working.
Also, I wonder though whether that's because you and I have watched so much of this show now and have thought about it, definitely much more than anyone else who has watched the show, that we're like figuring this out. Like, I wonder if we were just casual viewers and audience members and just saw this, whether it would have stood out to us as anything, you know.
Yeah.
Of note.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if anyone ever mentioned or talked about the show, it's like, watch this episode, and then if you like that, watch the rest of it. It'll be a bad time, but all you need to do is watch this episode, because this is what the show wants to be. It's like, watch what the best thing is, you know? It's like, some bands are kind of like that. I can't think of a good example, but it's like, oh, this is like their best album. The earlier stuff is not as good. And like, this is like the album that like,
if you're really into this, then maybe you can stand the rest of it. But if you only kind of like it, then don't go anywhere else. Like, this is the best you'll get.
The only reason this show has any entertainment value is what we're doing right now, which is talking about it. It has no value. When you're watching it, it's so bad sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like so not interesting.
I mean, like, and it's so annoying to go back to the acting, because we talk about that every week and everyone's always talking about it. But it is the fatal flaw. Like, Seinfeld couldn't act, yes, but he could carry it a bit more than John could, and more importantly, everyone else on that show was like the best sitcom actor ever, so it didn't matter. Whereas here, not enough people talk about how every other actor kind of sucks. Everyone other than Martin Short is really not doing a good job, and John's the most glaringly obvious. But it's like, guys, no, none of you are carrying this. So like, all of the joke setups, like in the beginning where they're doing a little they're doing a little New York sitcom bit of like one guy's paying all the rent, which, whatever. No, that's never happened in the history of the city, but who gives a shit? Like, this is a trope that exists in New York shows. But like, there's very classic like back and forths that you see in tons of multicams, and it could work. Like, it's not subversive, but it's fine. I've laughed at that stuff in like sitcoms from the 80s, but the acting just doesn't carry it. So I'm just like, it's like painful. It's like really hard to watch sometimes.
Seaton is like Seaton and Nassim. It's like all these people are better served as sketch actors, because sketch is like like you're like raised above like a naturalistic kind of narrative feel that like Martin Short can hit and Elliot Gould can hit, but like these people can't hit it because it's like they want to do some sort of detached irony, but they also want to make it feel like they're all friends. It's like almost like Andre might even be the one that can actually pull it off the best, because he's the weird one.
I was thinking, I was like, do I like Andre? And this is like this. It was kind of like blowing my mind.
Oh my god. This is how I know that like this social experiment mind control thing has been working on you, because now you like Andre.
I know.
That's how we
John
know
Mulaney,
we really committed.
But I like Zach Perlman, who we cannot get a hold of. We called his manager and the number doesn't exist. He's not real.
Call his manager.
We called
what happened to Zach Perlman? What happened?
Nobody knows. The follow-up sitcom should be like the follow-up podcast to this should be a Finding Richard Simmons thing, but finding Zach Perlman. Then we just interview, and then we interview people, and they're like, I don't even know who this is. What are you talking
Finding
about?
Andre. Finding Andre.
That would be good. Oh, I wanted to say this. The opening stand-up bit is two very famous bits of his. One from Comeback Kid.
Ooh,
one
I have
from New in Town.
to say about this, though.
Right, but so he does his Delta Airlines bit, but he changes it to Belta Airlines, which it's still the joke is like, but it makes it so much worse. And so
much
I
worse.
was like, okay, you clearly do that because you can't get away with saying Delta Airlines in a disparaging fashion. Fine. I get it, if your legal can't cover it. But then later in the episode, there's a montage with a Backstreet Boys song, I Want It That Way, which clearly must have cost a ton of money. Like, they use a good chunk of the song. It's a very popular song. And so, like, you really couldn't find some way to just say Delta Airlines sucked? Like, Family Guy calls people rapists and pedophiles and, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do they get away with calling, like, all these brands of people that? But this one is, like, it's insane.
Yeah, I think this is, like, for the best episode, monologue feels very reined in. Like, it's like he's just...
Yeah.
It's like he's at, like, the Chuckle Hut in Milwaukee,
yeah.
and the crowd is not really giving it to him. So he's just kind of doing the bit. He's just saying everything he needs to say. Because it doesn't feel particularly performed or impassioned. This is not, like, one of my favorite John Mulaney bits. I don't like the Delta Airline, like, where he sings the song and he's like, oh, you're a little fat girl. It's like, this kind of just feels like someone, like an AI making a John Mulaney joke.
Yeah.
Which I know, like, this is, like, one of his, like, big... or one of his, like, better bits, I'd say. Like, something that's a little more, like, this is what this guy does. It's just, like, I like his weirder stuff about, like...
Yeah.
If you're gonna do, like, a long bit, like, it has to be that, like, your dad, like, it was, like, hated
knowing Bill Clinton.
It's like, that's incredible. Like, that's an incredible bit. This is just, like, about Delta.
It reined in is a great way of putting it, because it's, like, I don't necessarily think of him as, like, a guy who leans on vulgarity. Obviously, I don't think anyone does. But, like, there's 2 or 3 moments here where he does swear on the album versions, and he obviously can't hear. And it's kind of obvious. It does feel, it's like, oh, man, I wish you could have said fuck. And, like, and also, though, this is an example of, like, we're still in the early run of this show, because, again, it's episode 5. And so, like, in the first opening scene, they talk about Mulaney's feminine hips, which is another thing that talks about New in Town that became, like, kind of a catchphrase for us. It's like, we're still in the run of this show where we're just referencing bits of his as part of the whole show, you know, as part of the episode and part of the dialogue and narrative. And so you're like, all right, I guess you felt like you had to do that to get people interested, but, like, you didn't. You really didn't need to.
No, you didn't need to have, like, a scene or, like, some sort of interaction that's based on John's bit where, like, a middle schooler fictional says, like, there's that man with feminine hips or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but John, like we mentioned this before. It's like, John, you don't really have feminine hips.
I know.
Like, you really don't have feminine hips.
Yeah.
Like, you're lanky. I wouldn't say, like, that's, like, a funny thing to say because it's almost not true. But the fact that it's in the sitcom, it's like, does he really think he's, like, curvaceous? Like, does he think...
Well, there's also the thing of, like, the difference between stand-up and sitcom jokes is stand-up, it actually really doesn't matter what you look like, because it's just hitting, you know? And you're on there for at most an hour, probably. So, like, whatever. No one's looking, you know, they're, like, focused on stuff. Like, if you say something that's wildly non-true, if, like, you know, I don't know, like, this, whatever, Bert Kreischer does I'm a real scrawny guy joke, people would be like, this, I don't even know what this means. But, like, you could probably get away with a lot. Whereas on a sitcom where, like, the jokes are ideally tied to character, and, like, we're supposed to be invested in who they are and what they look like, and we're spending a lot more time with them, because at this point, if you've stuck with the show the whole way, you've spent 11 episodes, that's like 3 months and, you know, however many hours of time watching these people, you know them a lot more. So it's something that goes against it actually really doesn't make sense. It's like adding a character trait that you didn't realize was supposed to be innate, but then was also, like way down the line, like, not something you would have ever come up with. It feels like
I think that's a great
retroactive or
point
retcon.
too.
Yeah.
Because in stand-up, you're like, it's a bit. Here, it's like, no, this is the world I'm experiencing, simulated on the television in like a shoebox diorama. That it's like you can't just be like, nah, we're just saying John has feminine hips. Yeah. I'm looking at John as John the character, not John the man who's doing stand-up. Yes. So, like, the detachment doesn't work as well because when you're, I don't know. It's just weird, and like motif is so crazy, it just starts to become off-putting in a way. Like I actually, I'm gonna say this for the 8th time. This is my favorite episode.
Yeah.
But motif is like he like saw John bending over, but he like thought it was like a woman, and it's like, dude, like you're doubling down on the feminine hips thing like so much. It's like, dude, you are not feminine. In this episode, you take your shirt off and you put on a tank top, and I note in my notes he looks like surprisingly toned. I was like, wow,
what I was
gonna
say. I was like, you don't look. I'm scrawny, you know. Like I do bits about like my arms haven't like increased in width since I was 11, you know, and that works because it's true. But like if I were a tank top, it's weird. But like John, no, you know, they showed you good. At least don't show him in a tank top, you know? At least just leave it to the imagination. If you look at it, it's almost like you're fishing for compliments. It's almost like, oh, I don't want to wear this. Like, I look so weak, and everyone is like, no, you look good, dude. It's like, you have a show already. You don't need people to tell you look good. You have a fucking network sitcom with your name as the title.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a couple bits like that in this show in general. There's like,
where they call him handsome.
Someone calls him handsome. It's like, all right, man, like, what is this? Like, this is your show.
I know.
If I had a show, nobody's calling me handsome.
Exactly. If I'm in it too, if it's my name and I'm in it and I'm the guy, like, everyone's gonna call me a piece of shit the whole time, deservedly so.
Yeah, like there's like some producer being like, we should make them call John handsome so the girls know that he's handsome. It's like, no, handsome is self-evident. It's a choice.
I know.
It's a personal preference.
If they don't think it, then they're not gonna think it. You know.
I do like how Andre sees a woman that Motif is dating bent over in the apartment and says, "Hi, Mulaney." Like that's like okay.
That's
if you're
good.
Just setting
it's like
up
a
that,
callback.
It's like
It's they're working with it. Like they're talented writers. Like it is funny. Like you look at the writing staff and it's like all of these people have went on to do had already done incredibly, you know, accomplished things. So it's like, this really should have been better. And every so often you see evidence of that.
Yeah, I mean, John's like opening monologue is a good example of that. It's like a little bit like maybe reined in. Like maybe it's just like it could have been better, but maybe they made a show for NBC, and when NBC passed, they still had the momentum to go to Fox, but they were like, it's not really what we were doing before, though. You know, it's like maybe it got changed up enough.
So as we discovered a few weeks ago, the original pilot script for the show exists online. I don't know if the footage of it does, but we should maybe read that, probably on this episode, but like in a different one, because I wouldn't say it's good. I read the whole thing. I wouldn't say it's good necessarily, but as a first episode, it was a lot funnier and it was a lot more interesting to me.
Yeah, and there's that character that the guy whose podcast I've been listening to is supposed to play, like Seymour or something.
Yeah, he was basically there's not really is there an Andre? I think there might be, but he's Motif, but he's just not. He's not black. He's white instead of being black, which is a very broad way of putting it, but it also is literally the characterization. You know, him and Jane are kind of like a Two Little Rascals type, you know, they're like just going around doing like a Troy and Abed or like a Joe and Andy type thing, you know,
like a Aditya and James type vibe,
like an Aditya. Well, I was even saying like there was a little bit here, a James Donlon joke alert when John says I should give a firm handshake, you know, and he goes, oh whoa, we're not what is it, a vacuum salesman in the 50s, and I'm like, we're not taming a tiger here, you know.
Never reference my material on the podcast.
The Lou's subplot for the episode.
I love Lou in this episode. So weird.
He's good.
He's
good. He's doing good. I'm happy with him. I'm happy with the guy. What was so his subplot is that he's trying to get a role in a Martin Scorsese movie where it's about a Floridian prep school serial killer. And he wants to be the main guy. and so he's just being a crazy person. To act,
It's about power moves. The show.
About power moves.
This show, again, like I said, it is like the Rosetta Stone because this show is about power dynamics. It's one of the major themes because it's about power dynamics between men and women, between roommates, between friends, between boss and employee. The last episode was John roasts his boss, and the boss becomes offended because John's young. It's like all these different power dynamics, which is like, one note on the power dynamics is that, like, one of the power dynamics it does not explore accurately is race, even though it seems so eager to, if they just allowed themselves to actually engage with that by actually giving Motif, like, some sort of, like, character, some sort of, like, maybe, like, some black people on the writing staff that can, like, help them, like,
That's the thing.
explore
That's the thing
something
is
they
clearly want to talk about it, but they do have just enough good sense to recognize what their racial makeup of the writing staff is, so they're not going to fully go into it. But then every so often you will still get, like, self-hating Iranian bits, because that's not a thing that, like, you'll get in trouble for it in 2014,
Yeah. It's just very interesting how, like, that theme, after 10 episodes, it's like, oh, like, this is a plot that just points, and like, this is one of the things we're talking about, and this is like playing on like the power dynamics of like what is it, power moves. So the whole episode is called power moves, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Jane trying to get her cat to have sex with her, like
John trying to be more assertive in the roommate situation
with roommates,
and Lou trying to get cast as a serial killer by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, exactly. It makes
That's
perfect
what
sense.
this episode's about.
You can see how there's 3 subplots, And they didn't get Martin Scorsese to be in the show.
Another referenced person who is not in the show.
He's in he's in a scene, technically. They're like in that restaurant scene where he's like, Lou's yelling at John. He's like, that's Scorsese over there. And they kind of show, they don't show his face, but you can see the back of a guy's head. And I'm like, I don't know the back of Martin Scorsese's head that well, but
didn't look anything like Martin.
Why not just be like he's set?
Look like an older Mexican man, to be honest with you.
Right.
I was like, did they cast some elderly Latino man?
Well, look, they didn't get Martin Scorsese, but they did get Jason Mraz, or at least that's what I thought when John was wearing that pork pie hat. Because Jesus Christ.
Oh. I love the look of him in that hat.
Yeah.
This is when it really starts working for me. When Lou is trying to give him the tips about the power dynamics, and then just everything John tries works right away. There's no doubt. He just knows what to do. It works.
Yeah. I also the scene in the restaurant that we're talking about. I wish that scene was longer, and maybe that's just a network runtime thing. But when he when Lou is like, I need to yell at you to show that I'm a crazy person, and then he's like, she's 13! Well, you're gonna go to prison and get jazzed! And I'm like, I wish you had did that for 5 minutes and just called him a pedophile rather than walk away.
Yes.
That was great.
It really, it was really smart, because it's you don't expect a sitcom to do that kind of joke, and John is also so caught off guard that the whole show, it's what? That's what, Lou simultaneously is a plot surprising John, but he's also surprising me, because I'm I had no idea that would be a joke they would make on this show.
It is shock humor to an extent, because it's as a seasoned audience member, it's he's gonna say something crazy, and John will be, even though he gave permission, will be offended. But him going there, you're like, holy fuck. But it is funny. It's not explicit for the sake of being explicit. It is really good,
Yeah, I think that, this is when the episode really, they do their setup stuff, whatever, they get some stuff going. Jane's plot, honestly, kind of disgusted me in a weird way.
No, it was so stupid, yeah.
It was, strange. It was the way, at the end, the cat is, being, sexually aggressive.
Right.
It's
well, that's the thing, where it's yes, he rips off the covers, and she goes, then, so they're clearly leaning into the pet as boyfriend metaphor, whatever. But then they make it explicit when John goes did you, and Jane's we didn't have sex, it transcended sex. And it's in my mind, if you're gonna do everything beforehand with that, you can't ever burst the bubble. You can't say you can't acknowledge that this is a sex metaphor. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
you know what they should do is Motif and John should just have a conversation when Jane isn't there. Like, is she having sex with her cat? I have no idea. That's all you have to do to acknowledge.
That's you can't have her also be in on it, because then it doesn't make sense at all. Because then it's like, oh, you knew that you were being weird about this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, dude, I mean, we're jumping around a little bit. They go and, like, they're wearing the weird hats because Martin Scorsese's in the restaurant and, like, Lou wants to look emotional in public, and so he does the pedophile thing. It's just, like, in my notes I just made, like, this feels, even though this is episode 5, this is, like, it's like a shooting star, and this is, like, right when you see what the show was meant to be.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe the next 2 episodes that are the final 2 really get into the same zone. I think the finale... might be interesting. The finale might have some meat on the bones that we could talk about because it is a finale, you know? Like,
the finale was also the finale, right? Like, it was meant that was meant to be the last one?
I do believe it was meant to be the finale. I don't know.
I'll check. Let's see. Oh, no. It was 106. So what is 113? The 13th episode was Patriot Acts. Alright, now that's very odd. That was the Marine USO one.
Like, were they gonna end the season on a cliffhanger of John goes to Iran? Like, what is that?
Maybe that's
what they were gonna do?
Right, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I can
horrible.
imagine... I mean, a season 1 finale for a sitcom, I feel like you don't necessarily need to lean into any, like, narrative plot lines, necessarily, especially if you're a show that doesn't have overarching plots, like, you know, like a Seinfeld or something. But, and so you could do a thing where it's like season 2 could have started with, like, a throwaway gag if he was like, oh my god, Iran was insane, wait until I tell you about it, you know? But, yeah, I mean... it also is bad just because, like, that episode kind of sucks. So, like, you know, and
yeah,
that
I mean,
so
that
stupid,
might
so.
That's, like, smart. I think the plot synopsis of what I saw of what the final episode is actually seems to be like what a final episode of this season.
So maybe it was just like that way. It was produced in the middle of it, and then it was always meant to be broadcast later. But certainly, the broadcast order was not meant to be what it was. You know, like there's no way you would broadcast it in like this if unless it was being screwed around by a network.
Well, something that I had assumed about the show that I've learned by now actually going through and watching it, like from the Pete Holmes interview, it was like, oh, we tried to do things too early. But it's like, the things they talked about didn't feel early, but now learning that it's in a different order, it's like, so they felt like they had tried to do things too early, so they rearranged the order that the episodes came out in. So it's like, I don't know, that Pete Holmes interview, like, it's gotten so much weirder to me because the information almost makes less sense now that I've watched the show. Because I can't really tell what the fuck they're talking about. They're like, oh, well, we tried to do, like, the body swap too early. And, like, Pete was like, oh, this is, like, weird. Like, Pete says something about his episode because it was, like, so early in the season. But it's like, that's, like, halfway through the show. It's not that early, like... But then, like, Pete must have been there on week 3 or something. You know what I mean? Whenever, like, Father Trey was.
Well, it's interesting because it's, like... It betrays almost a lack of self-awareness about what you are actually putting on to screens. Which, you know, to some extent, for anything that one is involved in, like, you're not going to ever be the most objective looking at a piece of art that you made or wrote or whatever. But, like, Mulaney especially strikes me as someone who is incredibly self-aware. Almost to a detriment at times, you know? And, like, in his stand-up especially, but then also in his everyday life and other things that he's made, he's very clearly, like, attuned to, like, how will people perceive this? How do I, like, you know, react and, like, response to that? And so this sitcom, beyond anything, just stands as a shining example of, like, we all have our blind spots. And he clearly had no idea what he was actually saying with this.
So I know we got to finish the plot of it, but what you just said is something that this episode really helped me notice about John Mulaney, is that John is very weird, and he has weird ideas for things. So it's like, when he's doing stand-up, it's like, that's like John Mulaney, the guy, and you might have an idea of who he is as a guy based on the stand-up, but the guy that is sitting down and writing, like, I think about something like Kid Gorgeous, Comeback Kid, New in Town, that paints a picture of, like, this guy that was, like, allegedly, not for me or you, but, like, for, like, 13-year-olds, like, shattered when his drug and divorce thing happened. Whatever. Yeah. But then you have this other thing, if you really are a fan of him, you're paying attention to something like Oh Hello, Sack Lunch Bunch, and then like Stefan, even like some of the weirder sketches he wrote, and the fucking late night show. They're very weird. They're so weird that like the things you see from Everybody's Live right now feel like Mulaney in a way, because the bits are like, what? And it's like, yeah, like people on Reddit, I'm on this John Mulaney subreddit, like, I don't know how I feel about this. It's like, yeah, this is what he does. This, when he wants to create content, this is what it is. It's not the stand-up shit. When he has, like, the full scope of the capacity to pull, like, audio visuals and, like, bring guests on and, like, actually formulate some sort of full, coherent idea versus just the stand-up performance, it's very weird. He has very weird ideas. He's, like, Lynchian in a way sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, and I hate, dude, that's such, like, a corny thing to say, but it's so weird. It's dreamlike.
Well, you know what that's... I'm like, what am I? Is this a late night show or a Joker too?
Yes, that's why I say Lynchian. It's dreamlike quality.
But it's... But no, that's a perfect example, and I think it's representative of the way stand-up as an art form kind of flattens, you know? Kind of like, it kind of smooths out certain weird things if you actually care about it and want to be good at it. Because you can even see this in Mulaney's like one-off sets, and the ones that he clearly hasn't honed over the course of a year for an hour special or an album. You get the sense of like the weird things he's into. Like, did you watch his induction, his speech at Conan O'Brien's Mark Twain Award ceremony? He's the first guy that goes up, and he does, most of it is about the Son of Sam. Like, it's just this weird thing that he references Son of Sam, and then his Oscars speech, it ends with him just or not Oscars speech, but like he hosted the the technical Oscars, and like the end of it is him just reading out from an Al Pacino Playboy interview. It's like, it's the weird stuff that like pop culture nerds and New York nerds and like people who have like a mind like his are super into. But then, you know, so you write all those jokes out and you have all those really specific references, but then you go on the road to Middle America testing out this show, or this hour-long show for a year, and you realize, oh, people don't get that reference. They don't know that joke. They're not going to reference that. They're not going to laugh at it. So let me change that to something a bit more broad or specific, but still in a way that'll hit. Let me deliver it in a way that's better. And then you get his 3 hours that are deservedly acclaimed and beloved, but they are flattened. They present a much narrower picture of what this guy's sensibilities are, because the nature of what he's doing has to be a bit broader. And like the 92nd Street thing, he's like, look, I wanted to make this still just showbiz. Like, I wanted to make a thing that's still entertaining first. And like, I saw people like criticisms of that special being like, you know, it wasn't as honest as like he said it was going to be, or like they thought it was going to be. And it's like, yeah, and I respect him for that, because this is not what fundamentally this art form, if I can use that term, referring to stand-up, is about making things up and acting outraged about it, you know? It's about being like, what, this is crazy, what? And it's like, none of that's true, you know? And like, you know...
Just because Joe Rogan sits in a studio and says it's honest and true, not what it is.
No, it's not
what it is. Go watch a Bert Kreischer special. The man is openly lying about everything.
Go watch a Bert Kreischer podcast episode. He's not saying anything true, you know?
Like, that's who the titans of this industry are liars. It's a lying medium.
Yeah. And as it should be. That's fun, you know? Nobody gets mad that, like, fucking Chris Hemsworth isn't actually a Norse god, you know? Because that's what's entertaining. We're putting on a show. So, like, this doesn't need to be us, you know?
Rarely, but some people is like, is that real? That thing in your set, is that real? I'm like, sure. Can we talk about anything else besides my material? Like, the material is self-evident. Like, you don't go to the Beatles like, did you really all go in a yellow submarine?
Yeah, I know.
It's like, come on, dude. It's a catchy song. It's like, why do you have to... It's like, because...
Do you like it? Did you find it funny? If you didn't, that's fine. But, like, that's all that I care about, you know?
Does it ruin it for you if you find out it's not exactly true? If you find out my girlfriend isn't actually a witch, even though I do like a whole bit about my girlfriend's like not a witch at all. Almost like we have incense sometimes. That's not a witch. That's not what a witch is.
She's just like a nice smelling home.
Yeah, like she's like brought friends to shows and they're like, "Is that true?" And she's like, "No." Like she gets it. She's like, "No, it's like a fictional girlfriend for the fictional person my boyfriend is pretending to be on stage."
Well, because it's also like you can't just say, because of the nature of it, at least now, you can't just say like, wouldn't it be funny if like my girlfriend was a witch? Like,
yes.
you know, like, would it be crazy if she did this?
Yes.
But she doesn't.
Yes.
She doesn't
yes.
actually. It's like you have to ground it in some level of reality. But again, if I'm saying a knock joke to you, you get that I'm not actually behind the door. You know, like there is that level of like suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, it's like nobody's willing. You want it to feel real because you won't laugh if I do like, you know, whatever they were doing in the early like stand-up stuff of like imagine Steve Martin being like imagine a situation that I'm going to explain to you right now and then this is what would happen. Like you can do that now. You are kind of like a hacky callback to an older thing. You have to like fully embody what that is, which is why like yeah, I don't know. Like I see someone like Shane Gillis as not like a true like master of his craft because he's just like he is saying like how he feels or something, but he's kind of just saying what you're not supposed to say, and kind of the detachment's like, hey, I don't, you know, I'm cool, but like I'm gonna say some words that people probably don't think that we should say, and it's like I love that Mulaney's just like, no, I'm like a master manipulator at a giant like cultural scale. Same thing with Louis. It's just like really cool. I don't know.
Right. No, and I think that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's the fun part of it. It's also, in a way, it's like, it's almost the step beyond it. It's like, as performers, we're kind of all saying, like, look, we trust that you get it's fake, so we're going to skip the whole part where we're going to be like, imagine this, you know? Like, we're not going to start with the once upon a time, you know? We're going to just get into it and say this premise. But we're doing that because we trust that you get that we're just doing jokes, you know? Like, you've seen this long enough, you know that that's what the deal is, the point of this is just to be funny, so then we're gonna ignore and skip past the first act of, like, establishing that this is just fakery and trickery, you know?
Yeah. Stand-up's able to achieve a goal that found footage movies are trying to do.
Right.
You'll never believe that's like, well, that's fucking Sarah Jessica Parker. Of course, this isn't real footage.
Yes, exactly.
But, like, I can be like, this is my life, you freaks. Yeah. You don't know anything about me. Look at me through this keyhole, you know? Like, so it's very interesting. Like, you could achieve different things in different mediums. But I also think, you know, I admire John Mulaney's capacity to jump between mediums to achieve different things. Like, he's just, like, everyone says that he should host a late night show. Everyone said it. But, like, he can't do what he's doing on Late Night Everybody's Live on, like, Jimmy Fallon. He's not gonna, you can't do that.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. It's also, like, it's just, you know, we talked about this before, your whole take on, and you can cut this out if you don't want to be,
I'm fine.
You know, a lightning rod, but, like, the thing about, like, the Conan Leno thing of, like, you keep the weird guys at like late at night. You don't bring them into the primetime slot, you know?
Everyone has their place, you know? Like, why are you setting people up for failure in a way?
Yeah.
I love Conan's my favorite, but it's like, come on, man. Come on. My mom doesn't like Conan as much as she likes Jay Leno.
Sure. Yeah, of course he doesn't. Like, why would
I'm from a family of, like, white people born in the 60s. Like, they love a guy like Jay Leno. They don't get that Conan's having, like, a Pimp Bot 3000 come out.
Yes.
You ever see that? It's like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, they don't care about that. They don't know. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't get iCarly. Like, why are we putting...
Right. Conan and iCarly.
Like, all in the family.
Yeah. But yes, exactly. Like, you have to, like, kind of soft-pile it. Yeah, of course Mulaney loves Conan. That's what he grew up watching. But Conan wouldn't make Late Night Live, you know? Like, what Mulaney's doing is the next iteration of being weird, and so, therefore, he's on a less accessible, to some extent, maybe more, depending on how you view Netflix, but at least compared to, like, broadcast TV, it's a weirder platform, you know? And that makes sense.
Conan would not make Late Night Live. Only I can make Late Night Live.
Only you can make Late Night Live. Oh, yes. I meant everybody's live. Sorry.
Yes, I know you did, but I also did that earlier, so I feel like I did kind of tease you.
Yeah. We'll just cut in a clip from you and Patty from 2 years ago.
Yeah, getting screamed at by women.
Dude, do we... Oh, Kendra has that video, right?
I have that video.
Oh, you have the video. But who took it? It doesn't matter, whatever. But
I think I just set up my phone. I have the video of Grant Moore standing at pre-Tubi. Grant Moore stands up.
Yes.
And then, like, there's...
But you got it from your angle? There was definitely an angle...
phone in the back.
Oh, right. There was definitely a second angle that I think... Maybe Caroline... Whatever. But it's it is that is great. You've never used that for anything, right?
So mine's like the news footage, but like you're saying, there's a Zapruder film out there.
There's a Zapruder film, yeah.
Back into the left. Back into the left.
Yes, exactly. We should do a JFK about this. That somehow ends with Patty being assassinated by a Miami club owner.
Yeah, you're the Kevin Bacon character in the JFK story.
Which is what?
Like a gay prostitute in prison.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You don't understand, Mr. Garrison. This goes all the way to the top. That's like one of my favorite movies. I love it.
JFK? Yeah.
Yeah, it like rocks.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like the theory that like JFK was killed by like gay communists. Like it's like
right.
I don't know about that, but I would prefer it if it was about like a fictional thing, you know?
Right. There is but I mean again, it's like, you know, we'll take it with a grain of salt. Like it's entertainment. Although we do know that Oliver Stone is insane, so whatever.
Oh yeah. That's why.
So
you
back
like
to the yes, back to the show. Oh, there's also there's another reference to Mulaney material when Jane is trying to show to give Motif Achilles' heels for John, what his weaknesses are. They talk about 8th grade basketball, which is another famous top part, and then also UCB talked about it. But then they show up like a photo that is obviously photoshopped that is so bizarre. Like it is.
I made
funny.
a note about the photo too.
Yeah, but I'm also like, this is kind of just disturbing. Like this is such a
he's
weird
like
Photoshop.
So far in the back.
Yeah, and it's like clearly a picture of him as a child, but then.
Yes.
Which I guess makes sense, is fair, but then it's in, like, a weird wedding dress or something, and, like, then it's, like, they do a callback where he does the roll call, the cheer of, like, the Blessed Virgin thing, and then it gets an applause break from the studio audience, and I'm like, I don't know if that was deserved, you know? Like, John just calling himself a virgin, like...
Yeah, like, Motif, like, activating him like a sleeper cell agent by being like...
That was like...
Give me an M! Give me an A! Whatever it was. And he was like, I'm a virgin. And I was like, alright, whatever. But yeah, I made a note that photo was like deeply strange. Because it's like, this is John's 8th grade basketball photo. And it's like clearly a stock photo of 5 basketball players. And then John Mulaney edited so small in the back. And the audience is like dying laughing. And it's like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking at yet.
Well,
like,
also, who knows what they saw, you know, the actual audience there. But yeah, it was like, it didn't work as a visual gag because... It was just so strange. I didn't even understand it. It was just kind of. It didn't seem intentional. And so then there's like
this is my favorite episode.
I know.
This is how much we're criticizing the best episode.
Right. Twitter, who thinks they needed an extra season of this, watch our podcast. You know.
Yes.
Can you respond?
I commented on those tweets.
That's great.
I did.
That's
do
great.
That.
Good.
I sent the Pete Holmes one because that has the most views. I was like, just watch this. We're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. There is one joke here that I thought was interesting. Was John is telling Lou about I was gonna say prank war. It's basically a prank war of like between him and Motif, and he goes, "I got him back. I switched his joke notebook with an Israeli passport. He's still killed," which to me is only funny if that's a pun on killed versus kill. Kill in the comedic sense and kill in the Palestinian civilian sense. But then Lou goes,
not.
It's definitely not, because then Lou follows it up with like, is like a really funny noise, you know, which is like, oh, you're just making a joke about Jewish people. And it's like, but also I'm choosing to interpret it in the first way.
Sure, why not? Yeah, it's like
which is 100% not what he meant, you know?
No. Yeah, I think Lou really shines in this episode. I think John actually does a good job on this episode. Yeah. I think Jane and Motif are very strange. I don't really... Like, you know where they were great? They were great in the Christmas episode. I think they were... Like, everyone gets their episodes. This was like Lou and John are like... John does some decent acting. He does some bad acting, but there's like parts that I'm like, oh, it's pretty good, you know? Because he's doing like an exaggerated character. You know?
Right. Well, you know what the issue ultimately, too, is that, like, we talk about the acting a lot, but also there's no chemistry. And that is, I think, more of a death knell to it, is that when there is out-and-out chemistry between two characters, you kind of don't need to write super fresh or original storylines. You can kind of just throw them together and people will have fun watching them. Whereas when you don't have that, you need to come up with interesting things for them to do every week that are kind of in line of what they're doing character-wise or what they're supposed to be. But if not, then it's like, I have no enjoyment in watching this, you know? There's no joy here. And there's no interesting relationship dynamics between any of the characters other than John and Lou. I think they're maybe the only ones that have a semblance of chemistry with each other. And largely that's because of Martin Short. But that's really the only reliable well we can keep going back to because it makes sense. I believe that they know and hang out with each other, you know? I don't for anyone else on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, as we kind of wrap up the show here, as we get kind of in those final episodes, I think kind of speculation on things that like maybe that you and I have been able to pull out of this show is something that we should probably look into a little bit. Like what they could have done, where this might have been going. Like if we could get anyone, I mean, we haven't been able to get anyone to be interested to being on the show. But, you know, I everyone moves on eventually. And this show was not that special. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like, wow, like what like The Office is like, oh, it's like a special thing to people. Like this show's like work. They all just showed up and did their best to make something. There's not a lot of like, John had to tell this story. It's not like about him really. It's about like, you know, there's nothing like personal really being revealed, or there's not some sort of dynamic that only he can like explore that like nobody needs to know what it's like to work for a rich comedian famous like that's not something that I'm interested in.
Well, it's also like it'd be one thing if you were pulling a 30 Rock and like a fictionalized SNL, because you could argue like, oh, this is him and Lorne Michaels' relationship, but it's not even that, because it's like at least then we could get an insight into his weird interpretation of what writing for Saturday Night Live was. But that's not what this is. Like, it's a running gag that his job title doesn't even make sense, so it's abstracting something that already doesn't kind of make sense.
Right. And so, yeah, it's just like there's if you're going to make a show, I don't know, there's so many shows. So you got to have something that people want to see, you know? Like, people make stupid points all the time about, like, oh, like, these shows are woke now. But it's like, or whatever. Like, people say stuff like that. But it's like, I don't know, some weird comedy about, like, Muslim people in Queens, or, like, you know, it's, like, different. It's outside of what people have seen normally because it's like, oh, you're exploring something that is, like, not something that we've seen. So we're just kind of like, yes, in a way, to the woke people, yes, we are kind of just checking the remaining boxes, whatever. But also, it's like, you never know what you're going to find when you approach comedy through that different angle. You never know what kind of things that are outside your specific experience are out there. This just doesn't feel like it had... Like, this episode was great because it felt like it was fun. It looked like they were having fun doing it. It had fun bits. It had, like, an energy to it that I found to be interesting. There's 12 other episodes that have none of this in it. This is not what the show is. And this is a show that you could grow into something, but at the end of the day, it's like, this is funny. This is an interesting little time capsule of what this guy's career was like at this time. But it's like, there's not really anything like incredible going on here, you know? Like,
yeah, and I mean, we started this with the intention of being like, how could this have gone wrong? And I think maybe what we're seeing is that there was a lack of a sitcom voice. There did seem to be a lack of self-awareness in what the actual product was. But ultimately, that's all because, to what you're saying, is that there wasn't really any desire to make any particular show. It was to just make a show. Yeah. And because there was nothing, and because he went the route of putting himself front and center for all of it, it seems like even more of a failure than it was, because it was just too bland to survive.
Yeah, and you know, and we've made this comparison before, but like the other shows that were coming out, it's like Girls is like one of the best pieces of television I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't compete if you're just showing up to work because you got the opportunity to make a show, when they're putting out stuff that's like Louis is like really weird and kind of like changed the way people do comedy shows for a long time.
Yeah.
And like Girls is like in the same vein of like a different thing that's like, it's just all these shows popped up that like did it completely differently, and we talked about like even like stylistically, like they just John just couldn't compete because he was like, what if I do like okay, I could do a show. What if I just did like a sitcom, but it was like like, John, that's not an idea. It's not really an idea. There's no idea here. It's just like, oh NBC, you don't want it. Okay, we'll just do whatever Fox wants, which is like insulting, but it's like you can't maybe. I read parts of that pilot that we saw. I think we could probably talk about that once we finish the show. But it's like that had at least a little bit of a heart in it, I guess.
Right.
Like it's something.
Yes.
But it's like even then, it wasn't that great of an idea. It's not a good idea for a show.
And I could see the stylistic and tonal thing that they wanted with this, but ultimately it was not either committed to hard enough or executed well enough for it to justify its existence. And so here we are. And so that's Mulaney, episode 11.
John dates a woman and befriends her daughter Ruby. That's next week's episode.
Nice.
Pretty cool. John with a child.
He has sex with her.
It?